according to the worldview of the Bible, what human beings are actually struggling with is ethics internally, is that they know the revelation of God's standard. And we'll finish up here with this. I'll end off here in just a minute or two. But Romans 2:14 and 15, I read this last week, just to kind of give us a preview ahead. Romans 2:14 and 15, Paul talks, Romans 2 is for the people who agree with Romans 1. That say, yes, that is the judgment of God that is coming on the world, and God's internal revelation of those who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, and all who, Romans 1:32, not just those who participate in it, but those who are approvers of it, that like to facilitate and celebrate the sins described in Romans 1. But Romans 2, Paul says, for the ethical, possibly the religious, maybe the Jewish religious person, or the moral Gentile. He starts out in Romans 2:1, says, therefore you have no excuse. It's more personal. You have no excuse, every one of you who passes judgment, for in that which you judge another, you condemn yourself. For you who judge practice the same things. He says, by the way, that capacity for ethical judgment shows that you too are accountable before God. You may not participate in denying God like the people in Romans 1, but the fact that you can acknowledge that what Romans 1 says is true of humanity, that shows that we are accountable before God as well. And Paul lays this out in Romans 2:14 and 15. He says, for when the Gentiles, he says, okay, well, how can this be if the Gentiles don't have the Scriptures? So when the Gentiles, who do not have the law of God, instinctively perform the requirements of the law, these, though not having the law, are a law unto themselves, in that they show that the work of the law is written on their hearts, their conscience testifying, and their thoughts alternately accusing or else defending them. So what Paul is saying there, I believe, is not that, because some people try to say, well, across the world there are laws against murder, and therefore human beings know that murder is wrong. And that's true to an extent. I think what Paul is getting at is that the Gentiles don't get all this stuff right. They have that conscience that bears witness against them, or accuses or defends them. But he says that very process that all of us as human beings recognize and go through, our very ability to judge ethically shows we are accountable before God. And he says that the work of the law is written on their hearts, that we may not apply it consistently or get it right without God's revelation, the saving revelation in Christ and in the Scriptures. But he says that our conscience does one of two things, and our ability to do these things shows why we are accountable. Our conscience testifies, so think of it like a lawyer, against and their thoughts, alternatively accusing or defending them. Meaning our conscience goes and thoughts go through this process of where we can accuse ourselves and we also can defend ourselves. So God says, you have the perfect God-given capacity to know right from wrong, and therefore they are without excuse. And so that's why people, I think, vacillate, go back and forth between relativism and absolutism. And then we'll fill out this last blank here. It's kind of end with a kind of funny note that I mentioned last week, that ethical reasoning and claims from any worldview besides the biblical worldview is participating in, and there's a little quote there for this accusation, and I call this the "you're praying with your eyes open" accusation. That when human beings judge one another according to ethical standards and then defend themselves, what they're participating is this thing that I call the "you're praying with your eyes open" accusation. That it's the type of accusation that demonstrates the guilt of the accuser. That yes, the person you're identifying as ethically wrong may be ethically wrong, but your ability to identify it shows that you too are guilty